Queen is great. These are my 10 best Queen songs that aren't Bohemian Rhapsody. You can tell I'm serious about this because I made a list. I made it twice. Lost it God knows how long ago when I said I was going to make this video and then made a new list. So, ground rules. Obviously, Bohemian Rhapsody is the best Queen song, so we're not including it, right? There's no real question there. Um, I'm saying Queen song, which means not Queen and David Bowie. Under Pressure doesn't count. There's a Queen and David Bowie song. I am counting singles. This is a cheat code, but I'm counting singles. There were several songs they released as double-sided singles, and they will play them back to back on the radio. So, calling it one song or one single, this is definitely cheating. 10 songs. A lot of my Queen experience involves Greatest Hits Volumes 1 and 2, so I wouldn't be surprised if every single song on this list is from there. Just telling you that now. Number 1, Another One Bites the Dust. Pretty obviously great Queen song. As we've seen in various Queen documentaries and biopics and whatever, Another One Bites the Dust, kind of a change of pace. They're like, too disco or whatever. Was it too disco? It's a good song. It's just a really good song, and there's a reason it's so high on the list on this, and there's a reason it's high on the track list of Greatest Hits Volume 1. Song number 2, Fat Bottom Girls and Bicycle Race. I think this era of Queen is a little bit underappreciated. The era in between Bohemian Rhapsody and into the 80s, it kind of slips past everybody. Or to put it this way, the era of Queen that has long hair Freddie but no mustache Freddie. It's so underrepresented. It's actually not really in the biopic that much, which we'll talk about later. But Fat Bottom Girls, Bicycle Race, they're just good songs. They're just good songs. I feel like I don't have to explain much about those. Number 3, We Will Rock You, We Are the Champions. It's amazing to me that a rock band fronted by a gay ? Lead singer, secret Middle Eastern man, and a physics scientist can make such jock jams. But god damn it, Queen did it. We Will Rock You, as I previously said in another video, was the start of a childhood memory to a SeaWorld show, which was a big part of my childhood. We Are the Champions is like what? It's the end to any sports movie. It's what I say when I sarcastically celebrate some small goal or victory being done at work or whatever. They just completely encapsulate that sports feeling. Which again, amazing that Queen of all people pulled this off. Those are the easy ones, right? We're going to get a little harder. Number 4, A Kind of Magic. Now, this is a later era Queen song, and I think it's well named. I think it really captures a kind of magic or nostalgic feeling of youth. Not from when you're being a kid, but when you're like, for me anyway, because I associate this with being like 18, ready to leave my town behind and go experience something new. I think it's like the kind of magic of like youth becoming an adult and that wondrous time frame. Guitar is really great on this one. It's just, I think, a really underrated Queen song. Number 5, Radio Gaga. I think I grew to appreciate this more when I saw some of the live shows and then like the Live Aid show. I think it might even be from the same era of Queen. I don't remember if it's the same album, but again, just that nostalgic like feeling. Except you're talking about radio instead of all these other feelings. Kind of ironic that radio is still around in my life and not like MTV. Just kind of funny. All right, getting into even harder stuff. Innuendo. Innuendo, I'm being assaulted by a cat outside of the frame, is a great fucking song. Like Bohemian Rhapsody is the really long epic song that gets all the attention. Innuendo is like kind of the same amount of crazy epicness with like musical changes and weird instruments and somewhat of a weird story probably that can occasionally be hard to follow, but you know it's awesome. Like if you haven't heard Innuendo, go find Innuendo. It's really good. Spanish guitar, all kinds of craziness. Definitely check it out. Crazy Little Thing Called Love. What is this? 7, I think. Crazy Little Thing Called Love. Recently saw a live version of it that was like really rocking and really had more electric guitar, especially at the end, and that was pretty sweet. It's kind of amazing how many different ways this song can go, from being the more acoustic rockabilly thing that everyone's used to being some of the more rockin' live versions. Like it's pretty good. Now, especially on Greatest Hits 2, there is a certain point in time where you're listening to it and you're just struck by how many songs are about the inevitability of death, I guess you could say, and Freddie just kind of slowly, maybe not slowly, but like losing his life and his ability to live the way he wants to live. So, or at least it does looking back on it now. But I picked a couple from that era, and it may have even changed from my first attempt at this list. But 8 is Who Wants to Live Forever. Who Wants to Live Forever is another example of Queen doing a song that's so good and so maybe even not a rock song that it just shows how good they were at making music, right? Like I had to convince an ex-girlfriend of mine that this was by Queen because she was familiar with it. She was familiar with it by like I think Sarah Brightman, like the Phantom of the Opera actress, singer, whatever you want to call her, singing a version of this song, and I was like, no, it's a Queen song. She was like, nah, it can't be a Queen song, and I was like, who wrote it? Is it Brian May? And she was like, looked at the credits or whatever, was like, yeah, like it's a Queen song. Who Wants to Live Forever is just like epic, and I know I've seen Highlander more recently than I care to admit, but that's a weird movie. But Who Wants to Live Forever is like just amazing and dramatic and theatrical and all the things that probably got me into Queen in the first place, being a theater nerd. Like, oh, it's real good. Number 9, because I had to include it on this list. I think it may have been like one of the ones I was like waffling on. And actually, I really appreciate that this ended up in the movie Bohemian Rhapsody, even though they didn't really have a place for it, because it's from that era that they didn't have time to talk about, the no mustache, longer hairish era. Don't Stop Me Now. It's upbeat, it's rocking, it's in that same vein of Fat Bottom Girls and Bicycle Race, and that it's just a good old fashioned good time. It's not the crazy like epic theatrical stuff that some of the most famous Queen songs are. It's not like the sadder or sometimes more poppy stuff that came later on. It's just a good song that's hitting them at a underappreciated time in Queen's history, in my opinion. Last one, and again, I had to put it on here. I think Show Must Go On. One of my favorite movies is Moulin Rouge. This song is like heartbreaker in Moulin Rouge, but it doesn't really have to try that hard to be. Like, God, I think it's like one of the last songs they made, or at least it's one of the last singles they ever did, and it is before Freddie died. And God, it's just like so appropriate for what he was going through, and you can really feel it in his singing. But that's my list. Like, there's so many good Queen songs, but I think that's what it's going to have to be. You got some of the epicness, you got some of the nostalgic wonder I find in some of the Queen music, you got some of the rockin' stuff, you got some of the jock stuff, you got some of the really sad emotional stuff that Queen was able to do. They were able to go in so many different directions. I hope you enjoyed this list. If you have any songs you really appreciate that aren't Bohemian Rhapsody and aren't Under Pressure, put them in the comments section. Queen is great, aren't they?